Okay, everybody, welcome back to Enter the Matrix. And we're going to start with another episode of Nikolai's systems for operating within the Matrix.
Or
Greetings,
matrices
Nikolai.
systems that Nikolai has is sharing. Let's put it this way: they're not mine.
Yeah. Well, you are modest. You are modest. But yeah, this was. My God, I'm trying to remember how many episodes it was. We did an episode on business and success
Mm.
and sort of the operating codes to the Matrix. And so, what I thought would be great is there's a number of different key areas that I want to dive into um, and get your your understandings and perceptions for what the operational system is within other areas that I think a lot of the viewers will find important, dear, and, essential to their lives. So,
Let's do it. I'm excited.
yes, what is Nikolai's system for optimal love and relationships, according
Oh,
to the
that's
Matrix?
that's a big one. And right away, I'll put a disclaimer in. I've been married twice, divorced twice, and I'm
Which
not
makes you
currently in a
perfect.
relationship. Yes and no, and I've been through many relationships. As a result, I gathered many data points. With that said, I think I'm not. I wouldn't consider myself a credible person to talk on the topic, at least definitively. Given I'm not in a relationship right now, I haven't created a harmonious family, and I haven't had children. So, with that said, it's I can share what we've already briefly touched on, and I think there is going to be some very important insights there that were important for me as I was going through my marriages and then through my relationships. And the first one is that I found very important, well, that was counterintuitive to me, is that many relationships are created to have an evolutionary experience that does not necessarily lead to creation of harmonious couple or harmonious family. And what I mean by that is we've touched on the concepts in one of our previous episodes. We've touched on the concept of soul families,
Hmm.
and there is a very intimate soul family, which is, let's call it 15 to 25 souls, and then there's a bigger soul family, which is 150 to 250 souls. So a lot of times the intimate, the smaller family, soul family group are usually relatives. It's like your parents, siblings, and etc., or long-lasting romantic relationships, or ultimately spouses and etc. But then you have also bigger soul family group, um, and those are those intermittent relationships that are there to help you grow. Not just you, both partners that come into a relationship. And I'll start unpacking some actually on my real life examples. And so, two marriages. The second marriage was interesting because we got married, and I feel like leading up, it was a great relationship. Leading up to that, we got married, and then the relationship, I'd say, got a bit flatter. And then intuitively, year and a half later, we got divorced. It was a very difficult decision because there was nothing bad about relationship. It was like it was working, it was functional. We respected each other. Yeah, I'd say some chemistry was missing, but like it's something that could have been worked on. But
Hmm.
that's when we didn't understand the concept. Like, I didn't understand shit about energy or anything we talk about here, and I was just starting to dive in that direction. So intuitively we made a hard decision for both of us. It was like, because it's not a bad marriage, so that's what made it even harder to split up. And what's interesting, a year, because in Canada you got to be separated for 12 months, and then you can officially divorce through the court order. So she was following up with me, hey, who's going to take care of the procedure? And I was like, I'll take care. My assistant will take care of all the paperwork. We'll get the lawyer and etc. And in that moment, a year after we made a decision, just over a year after separation, so you got to be separated for 12 months, both of us got emotional. And I think the emotions came that we made the right decision, even though we were not sure we were making the right decision in the moment, because then both of us went on our own unique journeys. And let me
Mhm.
tie all the pieces together.
Yeah.
So then when I started, and we were just talking about constellation right before the getting on this on this call, right, or recording this call. Um, we in previous incarnations, our souls were not she was of a higher status. I was some kind of assistant of assistant. Well, I'm joking. I was like some kind of, let's call it a money manager for the family, for a wealthy family. She was a daughter in a family, but we were of a different status. And I was in love with her in that incarnation, and we were supposed to. I really wanted to get married, but they didn't allow us. The societal structures, parents, and whatever other things involved did not allow us. So that kept the energetic charge. So when our souls and avatars met again, we needed to close the gestalt, right? We needed to complete what we started energetically because it created a strong energetic charge that played out. As soon as that played out here, things got completed. And
Mm.
it started feeling kind of flat. And this is an example of, let's call it an incomplete energetic experience from previous incarnation. So we can call it love because in the moment when I was proposing, I was filled with emotions and etc. And and then this happens and I was like, well, what the fuck happened, right? Okay, so that got complete. Then after that I was like single, but then started going, I was like, okay, I'm back in the market. I'm like a healthy mid-30s male and pretty good place in life, figuring myself out. So I started dating, and I had a chain of 2 to 3 months relationships, and that started confusing me. I'm like, "Oh, what is going on?" And some of them ended in very strange, abrupt ways, uh, usually from my place. And that it started bothering me. And the reason it started bothering me is because society teaches us, well, you met a person, you need to do whatever it takes to keep that relationship going. That is the biggest bullshit ever. You have to really understand the context. And one example I give you, a context of marriage where we completed what was not complete previously, and as soon as it was complete, the energy disappeared. It's that attraction, that chemistry. And what I also realized once I started having enough iterations, enough self-awareness, what I started realizing, what humans call love is not love. It's so far away from love. It's like it's almost in parallel universes, and that's how far away what humans call love right now. And that's what I used to call love. What we call love, it's that energetic tie or charge that exists between uh, two people or their souls incarnated in those bodies. And that energetic gravity, I'll call it energetic gravity of attraction, usually is incomplete experience, karma. Let's say my soul incarnated few centuries ago and then, let's say, killed another person, and now we brought together to untie that karma, and there will be strong gravity, and that person will pay back to me by being abusive to me or whatever, as an example. And that gravity is felt as those what people call butterflies in the stomach.
Mm.
So whenever you feel the butterflies in the stomach and you feel this strong attraction, that is not love. That is Matrix bringing two of you together to finish unfinished business. And it's probably going to be a roller coaster in one or another way. Not always. I'll give you another example and tying back together as I started going into the relationships. I had this relationship where we felt amazing together. Like I would look into her eyes and I would start crying because I've seen those eyes like hundreds of times, millions of times. And back then, I didn't really fully understood previous lives, previous incarnations. So I was just new to all that. And then we started both intuitively understanding, oh, that's the case. We probably been together before. And that's that familiarity and etc. And and then the way that relationship ended, it was going really well. We're both of us like great connection, very easy constructive relationship. We understood each other really well. Like I felt in that moment that was like basically the best relationship I had in my life. In back then I was 35, 36 or something like that. um Best relationship I had in my 36 years, because I felt like I wasn't even walking on this planet Earth. I was levitating. I was floating. That's how ecstatic I felt. And then she needed to go to work to New York, and I remained where I was, and we were still chatting. And I sit in one of the meditations, and I get an insight that this relationship is at the end, and we're 2 months into a relationship, and we're both ecstatic. It's like, what the, like, what? This does not make any sense. So I thought I'm going crazy. So then I kept meditating and meditating, look into it, and I get very strong message to end the relationship. And previously I did not listen to that voice. And in this situation is basically higher self, soul and spirit, that is trying to give me the insight, dude, move on. Whereas before, when I haven't lived for a while, that voice started appearing for me in 2016. I didn't listen to it. My life got so rough. I got kicked in the balls so many times in so many possible different ways. And then I started listening to the voice. And that's, by the way, how we ended up going with the divorce with my second wife, because I got the same message and it was so loud and keep being persistent. And then I was like, no, no, I'm just maybe going crazy, you know? But then it's like,
Mhm.
dude, it's done, it's done, it's done. And it was under there, at least there were enough data points that were leading. It was a great relationship, but it was like kind of flattening out and declining. So there are not, at least there are enough data points, because both of us quit our companies. She was building a company, I was building a company. Both of us quit the companies and said, you know what, let's travel the world together and see if it was all the stress from building companies. As we started traveling together, we started realizing both of us become getting happier, energized, recharged, but we're kind of happy independently rather than jointly. So we would be in the same Airbnb doing our own thing and barely interacting and barely getting involved in each other's life. So those are the data points. But then the voice got strong, right? Here it's 2 months in. There's no data points of things not going well. There are only data points of things going exceptional. And but by then I started trusting the voice, and I called her and I was like, listen, and I shared like my belief is you got to be transparent about everything the way it is. And I called her, and she was like, she's quite upset, because and then she thought I was crazy. And that was the conversation, and the relationship ended. And in the moment, to me it was insane. When I shared it with friends, they thought I was insane. I'm pretty sure when she shared with her friends, they thought I was insane. It's fine. It was all written off onto Nikolai's insanity, quote unquote, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So of course, then, as and I keep repeating this, I really love the quote from Steve Jobs: "You can only connect the dots looking backwards."
Yeah.
And we're finally, as a planet and civilization, or at least people who have awakened, getting to a point where we'll be able to connect the dots looking forward. But predominantly where we exist as civilization, we have capability mostly to connect the dots looking backwards. So then as months pass, and I'm like still curious why that unfolded that way. And then when I like more of my capabilities activated, when I got access to more of modalities where I can look at the past lives, we've been together for many lives together, and we had great relationship together. And guess what? In the last one, we promised to be together again. So that's why Matrix, by the way, when somebody promises something to someone, it creates energetic contract. So, and then Matrix, one of the universal laws, universal law number 5, universal law of contracts, contract has to be complete. So Matrix is blind. It's not emotional. It's pragmatic. If there is a contract, it will be complete. And so we promise to each other in one of the lives to be together. Matrix brings us together because there's this promise. But given we've been together many times and we've got the necessary evolutionary experience when we got, and the reason it was so like peaceful and constructive and nothing's going on, because there's nothing really much left for us to teach each other. That's why that relationship would have led to non-evolutionary experience where the avatar would get very comfortable, and sooner or later that comfort would still be destroyed because the soul wants to evolve. And the environment we would have created would have just been not necessarily leading in that direction. But in the moment, I didn't understand any of that. So I basically said, we're done without understanding why. And then I had a bunch of very intense relationships that were very, very
Lots of
evolutionary.
evolution.
Yeah, well, my balls didn't enjoy it because I got major kicks in the balls.
Ooh.
I don't mean physical, but like there were painful experiences. Like there was one relationship where I've never cried so much in my whole life as much as I cried in the few months that we were together. And I understand why, because I didn't see a bunch of things about myself that Matrix was trying to mirror to me through friends, through relatives, through whoever. But I was very stubborn. I'm the shit. The ego is through the roof. She came and fucking disassembled that in a very not in a surgical nice way. She just like dropped bombs
It's kind
everywhere.
of like the chainsaw across the knees. Yeah.
Exactly that. And I'm like, whole and I was like, when looking once again looking backwards, if I'm deeply grateful to that relationship, because if it's not that relationship, not her, I would have it would have taken me so much longer to notice really big distortions in my personality. Like one big one was like quite a bit of narcissistic behavior in me. I was like, but then when people tell you that, I'm like, you're full of shit. Fuck off. You're a narcissist yourself, and that's what narcissists would say, right? And hardcore manipulator, right? And the crazy phrase there's a moment when I realized I was manipulating her and I was telling her, I was like, and I'm like starting to cry, realizing that I'm not really having a pure intentions here. I'm manipulating another person. And I was like, listen, I'm manipulating you. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make you fall in love with me. And then I'm going to break up with you and blah, blah, blah. And the response I got was very unexpected. She goes, manipulator sees manipulator from far away. I got excited. I should have ran in that moment. And that was a journey and a half. So to summarize all this, a lot of relationships um, are are karmic, or basically there is a contract, and there is basically we have a separate module where we unpack relationships. And so there's specifically karmic relationship where there's a karmic tie, like somebody hurt somebody or somebody promised to somebody something, you get brought together. There's also a relationship of a teacher student. Some people came to my life into a relationship where like I was a teacher or vice versa. They were teaching me something through the experiences. Um, and then ultimately the ultimate level of relationship, there are two. One is a co-creative relationship. Usually those that's I believe is a fourth level, and the fifth level is enlightened relationship. So those last two are the ones that have a predisposition for creating a harmonious, long-lasting relationship, um, and a family. But they do not guarantee that. Sometimes people will be brought in together, for example, in a co-creative relationship, that's just to demonstrate to each other that it's possible. But the partner is a different partner, and it will work, but then it will stop working, and you'll be confused. Why did it stop working? Everything was so great, and etc. So where I'm going with this, if I would summarize it, there's quite a lot of context to every relationship, and the very important thing here is to follow intuition and not be afraid to follow the intuition. With that said, I had a tendency to depart from the relationships before I learned everything. And my new insight is actually to stay in a relationship as long as possible, because A lot of those earlier relationships, they are karmic per se, or not necessarily karmic, all types of, let's call them non-final relationships. And relationship is, I call it as one of the most powerful retreats because the other person is mirroring what's distorted within you with magnifying glass. So if you're willing to see that the reason a person is behaving specific way and triggering you, they're not triggering you to trigger you. They are doing that so that you can notice things that are still out of harmony, out of balance within yourself. So relationship is a very powerful way to evolve only if you're self-aware and conscious and have enough understanding. Otherwise, it can be it was one of the biggest energetic taxes where it's like almost impossible to do anything else in life. And that's why if you really observe majority of today's relationships, people just escape to work, their craft, kids, and whatever, and there is very limited amount of interaction between partners, majority of partners, because they are so energetically taxing and they don't have the right instruments to navigate that.
Mm. Yeah, so I wanted to go into two things and see if we can unpack those a little bit more.
Yeah.
What is the or how would you define the co-creative versus the enlightened relationship, and what do those entail, and what is it about them that make them specifically good for long-term success, like, if we're going to use that as a
Yeah, 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 yeah.
metric, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, so let's start with the last one that is the most advanced. Enlightened one is the ultimate state, and that's when you can actually experience the true love. Um, uh, Enlightened is basically when both avatars or both people have synchronized their triads, which is mind, soul, and spirit, and aligned with their purpose. So now they're basically in the most advanced evolutionary state on this planet. And by advanced, I don't mean they're like, let's call it, there's still evolution to be done, but they've reached, comparatively to the rest of the population, the advanced state where they're fully aware who they are, that they're not just body, they're also consciousness, and that consciousness has specific vectors, it has specific evolutionary objectives, it's bringing specific things to this world. Both of them are aware of that, and since they got there, that means they've also developed enough instruments to uh, self-modulate and self-evolve, where it becomes very constructive when somebody triggers each other. First of all, in that relationship, the amount of triggering and etc. becomes pretty non-existent because by the time the person gets to the state of we call it vertical experience, when your triad is synchronized and you reach purpose, that means you've already harmonized most of your karma, you've already got through most of your incarnation program. So and you're in a state of creation, you're in a state of service. You're creating what you love and sharing it with people. In that state, both people are so internally balanced and at peace that to trigger each other is like becomes almost impossible. Even if it happens, then the way it works out, the person who's triggered goes, "I'm triggered. I take responsibility. It's mine," even though perceivingly the other person triggered you. No, all your emotions and feelings are yours. You cannot blame other people for them. And that's right now what the major problem is with this woke culture. Oh, you triggered me because you said this about blah, 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 about women or about men or about whatever, right? And nobody takes responsibility for their shit. And I'm just editing an episode Maxime recorded with someone else. And he said something really funny that I was just laughing my ass off. uh, the tendency right now on the planet is for people to shit their pants, but to blame other people that they shut into their pants. So that's exactly what happens. When you lose control of your fucking feelings and emotions, you shut your pants. It's not your partner who sat down and shut into your pants. This is your shit. Take responsibility and deal with it. So basically, at that level of a relationship, everybody takes responsibility for their stuff. And where, if I would take it further, when I mentioned that's when you experience what I call true love, because true love is romantic love as we define it is actually that karmic love or that karmic gravity that pulls people together.
Mhm.
That's what it is. True love is ultimately is what we also call absolute love. When you develop the quality of love of Jesus, love of Buddha, love of Allah, and who else are we missing there? A love of Shiva. And this is, I'll quickly unpack those so people understand. Love of Jesus is an unconditional love. That's the type of love that persona taught us. Then love of Allah is understanding the value of knowledge and freely sharing knowledge and not judging other people who are lacking knowledge. Love of Buddha is understanding that everyone has here a unique journey, life journey, which is unique incarnation program, and everybody's dealing with their own unique struggles. Hence, not judging people for their actions because they come from that place. Like, for example, what is good for me, if the other person tries to copy and do that, that could be fatal for them, or it will feel not great at all. So when observing another person doing something and judging them for doing that without fully understanding deep context is lacking that love of Buddha. And the ultimate love is, not ultimate, the last one, the fourth one, love of Shiva, is the understanding that there is energy of destruction, meaning that not being afraid to destroy things um, that are undermining, like creating danger for life or life's evolution. So, and usually people, especially in spirituality, get stuck in one of the qualities of love. And for example, people get stuck in this unconditional love. That's what they understand as love. But then when something destructive or negatively influenced things shows up in their life, they're like, oh, I'm just accepting, I'm like unconditional love to everyone. It's like, yo, this alligator is chomping you off your foot, you gotta fucking shoot it, otherwise you're gonna lose your own life, which is basically breaking universal law number one: protect life and life's evolution. And the first life you're supposed to protect is your own. And if you can't protect your own life, and that's love of Shiva, right? And Shiva as a deity in Indian culture is energy of destruction and etc. But in reality, people misunderstand it. It's energy, because to be a guardian or protector, you gotta be able to destroy,
Mhm.
because otherwise, how can you navigate that? So coming back, that encapsulated all four together creates an absolute love. Absolute love is like love basically of creator, of God. So when you're in an enlightened relationship, you start experiencing that love. But the funny thing, you're not experiencing that love towards the partner. You're just experiencing that love generally towards your life, towards the world, towards universe, and as a result, towards everyone in that. So the closest in one of the relationships, we got pretty close to that. And the way I described it when I experienced it, it was the most peaceful, unburdening love ever. Because what I've experienced is that I was happy with whichever event or outcome of that relationship. Meaning, like, let's say we're traveling somewhere, and previously, of course, I wanted the partner to travel with me to share that unique experience wherever we're going. And I get very attached to that. Whereas there, if she's not joining, and if there is another place on the planet where she experienced more joy and happiness than with me on that trip, I would be super happy for her. So I started becoming basically the only thing that mattered is for me was for her to achieve her full potential and be happy. So I'm happy when she's truly happy. And then it became just so easy. And it's like, okay, you know better what's best for you in the moment. So you decide, and I will not be upset. And because I'm in the moment deciding what's best for me to be in this state of persistent happiness and joy, so everything becomes easy. So that's that's the taste that I got of that relationship, of the enlightened version of relationship. And I'd say it was somewhere between co-creation and enlightened. It wasn't
Mhm.
really fully enlightened because she was earlier in her evolution, but intuitively she behaved as if she've already completed her linear experience and she's in vertical experience of synchronized trial and purpose. So I'd say it's probably more co-creation with a flavor of enlightened. And co-creation, in a nutshell, when partners are brought together to co-create something. So rather than being focused on each other, they're focused on a joint mission. And that becomes easier because then the focus is on something they're co-creating. Hence, they can evolve in the context of the relationship, but not spewing energy or fire at each other. So it's turned out, and as they're co-creating something, it could be anything. It could be co-creating family. It could be co-creating a business. It could be co-creating a community. The focus becomes external, and that
Hmm.
becomes easier to evolve, or it becomes more constructive to evolve in that structure, because as you co-create, you face challenges, and uh, it's easier to be supportive and constructive towards each other, to help each other navigate their own evolution, as your focus is on creating something outside, externally.
Mm. Okay. Interesting. And you had mentioned love, and one thing that I just wanted to parse out from you, like, would you find that there is a difference in the different qualities? Like, if we were to sort of look at these four different sections,
Mhm,
the love for God, the love for self, the love for your partner, or the love for your children. Does
mhm.
does the love in each one of those areas differ, or does it all ultimately end up being the same?
Yeah, so if you segment it that way, it's ultimately you want to achieve absolute love in each of those areas. And that's what
Mm,
people misunderstand. And people segment the world in all types of different ways, right? And when you segment it that way, then people start thinking that your love towards children should be different than love towards God, towards your partner. In reality, you want to achieve absolute love towards everything and everyone around you, towards yourself, because there are moments where you should be unjudgmental, fully accepting of yourself. There are moments where you got to kick yourself in the butt and get off a couch and do things, right? There are moments where you got to be realistic about your knowledge and how you perceive other people related to knowledge, right? Love of Allah. So when you've developed all those four qualities, then you actually that level or that quality of love is very balanced. You stop doing strange things towards yourself, towards your child, towards your partner, towards God. Because some
mhm.
people, oh God, why did you create all this bullshit for me? I was like, I've been praying to you for years and I'm eating shit with a shovel. What's going on, right? That those four qualities of love integrated to create the deepest and holistic sense of yourself and the context in which you exist. As a result, all expressions become balanced and very harmonious and very peaceful. And one more thing I want to add, I've talked about the butterflies love, the karmic gravity.
Mhm.
Um, when you're brought together with the right partner, by the way, you could be brought together with the right partner through the karmic experience, through karmic attraction, no problem. But ultimately, where it's supposed to land, it's it, it's this very peaceful, balanced, harmonious state. There's no like, I can't be without this person. I'm so in love. It's like there's just this very harmonious state. And when you think about the partner, you just experience this joy and happiness, respect, and all of these very balanced feelings. There's no like, or similarly, there's no like negative, oh, this person is almost triggering me, or blah, 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 etc. But most people, if they're triggering, they automatically like, oh, not the right partner. Or if they're like over the, what are they called? Over the top, over the hills, over in love, right? That's,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's not
Head
it.
over
It's
heels.
not it. Head over heels. It's not
Yeah.
it. It's not it. It's and by the way, that applies to everything in life. That applies to business, to friendships, to everything in life. Whenever there is overexpressed energy in either direction, either negative or positive, that means it's not necessarily. Let's say somebody's picking a business idea and they get super super excited. Oh, it's the best thing ever, and that excitement starts dying out. Actually, the idea that aligned is felt as like this inner joy, comfort, peace. It doesn't feel like it actually feels very balanced. That's why a lot of people in today's world, because their inner compass of sensations, of ability to sense, is so disbalanced, they only sense either super extreme negative or positive, and that's how they make choices. And they miss those very subtle, balanced, peaceful uh, events or options, because it doesn't. They think they need to feel the roller coaster, and that's where we've briefly touched on this in the previous episode. That's where everybody on this planet has to relearn to synchronize with their sensations, because right now their compass of feelings and sensations is like, first of all, internally unbalanced, and on top of that, society is using a bunch of magnets. So they're like, you think you're going north, but in reality, society has like a mental construct that is that magnet that is pulling the arrow from north to east, and you're walking, and for some reason you're not getting to the destination.
So bringing it back to that very much mainstream, I would say, concept of love,
Yeah,
because that does seem, if we go to the movies, if we
yeah.
turn on the television,
Hollywood,
if
everything.
we read our fairy tales,
Yes,
it every love story tends to go through the same arc.
yes.
So what do you make about that? Do you feel like this is almost a psyop on society for some reason, or why is it that in general the the souls, the humans of this planet, are force fed a distorted version of what love is?
I don't sense it's a psyop, and the reason is that so all this cultural, let's say, artifacts and content that instills in us, or I'd say does not instill, it reinforces it in us, is created by us. So because as civilization we lacked knowledge and understanding for extensive period of time how to sense energy and distill what one energy is versus the other, because when we talk about love, we're just describing quality of energy. Like most of people who are, well, not listening to this, to this podcast, don't even think we are energy. You know, they've heard of energy in physics, but they think they're a bag of meat that is gonna die, and you gotta accumulate as much comfort, wealth, and whatever, and experience as much pleasure as possible before the bag of meat dies, right? So it's of our own creation. Yes, there are other players that we've talked about here that could be further, let's call it, further deepening those trends or reinforcing these trends. But at the end of the day, um, my belief is to always take responsibility for your own creations. And as a humanity, we should take responsibility for our creations, for the movies we create, for the novels we write, the way we bring up our kids, telling them what love, how love feels. Uh, are there bigger um, meta trends unfolding on the planet? Yes, the planet was in a low vibrational part of the universe under management of low vibrational civilizations that instilled added their own flavors. But if we start thinking about things that way, where we're like point fingers, once again, now we're saying, oh, I didn't shit my pants. Reptilians shit into my pants, you know? But it's your shit, man. Come on. so,
Smells
uh,
like it.
exactly. So, and that's where the challenge is, right? Like, as people go into spirituality, they learn about reptilians and insectoids, and they start blaming them for everything. Oh, they've put all this karma into my life. Oh, they've made the relationships horrible. I'm like, well, uh, at the end of the day, you stay in the same place with that mindset. It's like, we still have free will. Nothing can be like, free will is a universal law. Nothing can be done without circumventing. They can't circumvent the free will. So things cannot be done. You choose every second. Every human chooses every second. And like as you're watching this podcast, you can start choosing differently a second after, and that starts creating a different reality. And then the previous podcast we've chatted about the timelines, right? And you start shifting to positive timeline where, let's say, where previously you could have met a partner that I, for example, met, which was a very rough relationship for me to learn specific things, but I could have learned those lessons in a very constructive, pleasant way if I was in a more positive timeline. So at the end of the day, we have full responsibility for our life, for reality we create, for people that we date, uh, for material things that surround us, the places we live in, etc. So it's we've co-created all these Hollywood movies, and by the way, yes, it does entrench those programs deeper, and I've observed that how deep it was in me, and like like all these novels, movies, and etc. Right, entrench this concept that all relationships should be like fucking emotional roller coaster. And when I started getting balanced and I was not getting emotional roller coasters, I was like, wow, this is a bad relationship, because there was an addiction to fucking drama. And that's majority of the humanity right now. But you can choose to be like, you know what? I've done enough drama. It was fun. We can move on. We can, clear the shit from the pants and, wash them, put them back on clean and smelling nice and be at peace. So,
Yeah. You know what that reminds me of? There's a quote from Bert Hellinger, that in a family of thieves, the child who will not steal has a guilty conscience,
here you go. Here you go.
right?
That's a good one.
So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So, bringing it back a little more to something a little more granular, in a sense,
Yeah.
right? When we're sort of looking through that lens of the Matrix, right? And through the lens of soul, spirit, all these things that we talk about,
Hmm.
based on what characterization, or what based on what characteristics should we choose partners when viewing things through that lens, right? And how do we balance, quote
Yeah.
unquote, the sexual desirability
Yep.
from the spiritual alignment, and then also from what society
Telling us.
says we should want, or tells us that
Yeah.
we should want, and how do we discern what is what is our body asking for, what is our soul asking for, and figure out, okay, this person is a good match for me.
Yeah. That's an excellent question that I've asked many times to myself and other people, my teachers, and etc. Right,
Mm.
and I don't have 100% final concrete answer, but I think I'm close to it. And
Give us what you got.
yeah, so the closest answer I'd give you, and then I'll go super technical,
Yeah.
is the best way to choose partner is intuition. Like, put everything aside. If you're being pulled to someone, just go with that experience. If that does not work out, that means you needed to go to that experience to close the gestalt so you could get to the next partner. Or you needed to learn, harmonize something, and evolve so you could actually attract your partner. So, the simplest answer, that now the rule I live my life by, and given like I have a lot of capabilities enabled now, like I can preview where things will go with different people and why we're brought together, right? It's I still put all that aside, and I'm like, I'm being pulled to that person. Since there is a pull, I will go into that experience. Sometimes it's one single date that resolves everything. Sometimes it's a relationship for 6 months that delivers all the necessary experiences and ends. But using that approach, you will ultimately end up with your partner. Um, and then the second part of the answer, the technical one, and it's a very important as well, because it will help people more lean into this intuitive approach. So we have mind and body, which has preferences. And that's one part of triad. Then we have soul that has preferences. And then we have spirit that has preferences. So we talk about synchronizing triad. Synchronizing triad means synchronizing triad in every aspect of life. That means when it expresses in a synchronized, unified way, then you also attract the partner that is just right for you. And it is much easier to live life intuitively when it's synchronized. If it's not synchronized, I went through the technical motions of testing it. First, I was like, well, I, as Nikolai, body and mind man, has specific preferences, body types, attraction, and etc. And I chose those body types and etc. And I had a lot of fun. But then my soul is like, meh, there's nothing going on here. Flat energetically, you're just like, you're just there's no connection, right? Then I was like, I know it now. I'm gonna choose what my soul wants. Then I choose what my soul wants. But then the body type is not my type. So my avatar is like avoiding every like amazing evolutionary experience, avoiding having any kind of intimate contact. It's like and like being in mid-30s healthy male, usually you're very sexually charged, and I'm be like, it's okay. I'll do it myself. I have a hand, and it's not
You
like
you
any
you'd
of
rather have the Netflix but no chill, right?
exactly, and it's not like any of them were not pretty. They were like all beautiful, but just not my body type, and it just clicks inside, and I'm like, ah, I was just like, I'll just skip this part of the relationship, right? And so that was a very important insight, right? And then you can pick based on what the spirit wants, and the spirit wants specific energetic synchronization and more so the soul. Okay, so mind and body wants the physical preferences, and for
Mhm.
men and women it's different, right? For men we're wired more visually, for women they're wired more intuitively, that he can be great protector, expand, meaning acquire resources and etc. They're looking for a survival and comfort. So hence the saying is men loves through their eyes, women loves through their ears, right? Because they listen and they understand. Well, that ultimately when you're fully synchronized, you're basically scanning holistically all the aspects of energy. But if we're just speaking about the mind and the body of the woman, they're looking for that through the years, right? Analyzing if the man can provide and etc. And it's true. It's encoded biologically, right? But that's only if we stay at that level of evolution. Then we synchronize with the soul. Soul just wants to have the maximum evolutionary experience. Hence, the soul is like, yes on this one. You're gonna fucking cry for 3 months straight? Definite yes. And let's drag you through dirt and everything possible so you evolve as much as possible in a shorter period of time. Or the opposite could be, I feel very comfy with this person. I feel like our souls connected. And I had both examples of the extreme. That woman who I was like, I feel like we could just sit on the couch forever together and do nothing. There's no need to live and interact with external world. We can just enjoy sex and everything else. And or the opposite of that was, it's gonna be rough. That's soul. That soul wants that. And the spirit is like, is this soul old and advanced enough for us to co-create in a state of enlightenment ultimately? Because the way it works, the union between man and woman is very important. Um, the union either magnifies both of them if the souls are of the right level of advancement and the size, or it undermines each other. So let's say if it's a young small soul connecting with old advanced soul, then the young and small soul starts burning because there's just too much energy to handle from the big advanced soul, and the big advanced soul starts degrading, and ultimately it becomes a self-deprecation. It's like you're basically not valuing yourself. So the spirit does not want to permit that. But if the
Mm.
spirit sees another similar soul, it's like, fuck yeah, you guys should be together. But then the spirit goes, yeah, you guys should be together, and but then the body goes, I don't really like the way this person look. Like, I'm not attracted physically, and then the soul goes, well, the evolutionary experience is kind of meh. And we're like, we don't even have similar interests. But the spirit goes, but you're two advanced souls. Just get your shit together and get things done for universe, right? And so that does not work either. So ultimately, all three need to be balanced. And I've tried to balance them, given I have this knowledge and ability to see all this data across all three dimensions. I've tried to balance them technically, and the conclusion I've arrived at, it's almost impossible. So the Excel does not work. Hence, you just got to use your intuition. And another caveat there that I lived through, and I'm still living through that experience, there's somebody who I dated whose soul was very small. And that really, and looked like a young soul. It was small soul. And I loved everything else about that person. But when I projected things forward, I saw this very earthly relationship. Like, she was very caring, loving, could be best mother ever, loved kids, wanted kids, blah, blah, blah. So I saw it almost as being a very earthly experience where she would be a great wife with kids and like the housewife type. But because her soul was substantially smaller, we couldn't co-create, and that means I would live my own spiritual life and do whatever I do in an energetic world and then in a physical world as well, and she would live almost this pocket, only one aspect of life that I would participate in. And ultimately the enlightened version, or it encapsulates co-creation, where we are doing things together beyond just creating family. And I ended that relationship, and the caveat there are some souls that do very, let's call them very advanced things where they hide their size. So the avatar is only connected with a portion of the soul. So when you look at it, you see only small soul. But as avatar, and if avatar gets to a specific point of evolution, then that avatar gets access to the complete soul that is times and times bigger. And that was that experience. Ultimately, she's now connected to a full blown advanced soul. And it's interesting. So that's why looking at relationships technically can get you caught up in all types of weird edge cases. So best is to follow intuition. And if you're meant to be together, the matrix will bring you together. You will not miss your partner. It's like, yeah, you might miss them once, twice, whatever, but there will be, ultimately matrix will be like, we'll put you at one fucking table and we'll like, I don't know, handcuff you to each other through weird situation, through weird chain of events. So you start talking to each other. So you recognize you guys should be together. So that's why the ultimate answer is just follow your intuition and be open, because I was not open, because I was looking through it. Like many things in life, I was looking at everything through a spreadsheet. As a result, I limited a lot of let's say experiences, or where experiences could have gone. With that
Hmm.
said, one thing I've learned is that everything happens in time. So even if you per se meet somebody and miss them, if you're truly meant to be together, you will be brought back together. And I've seen that as well, where people kind of dated it and didn't work out. A few years later, they meet, they're completely different people because they evolved and it just clicks and works, whereas before it just miserably failed. So, and for different reasons, either it's like a smaller soul, or a personality was not harmonized. Hence intuition.
Hmm. And you answered one of my questions, because I wanted to ask you about, like, on a soul level, does the size of the souls need to match? So that's an affirmative on that one. Um, Question, just in terms of what you were mentioning there, with if you're meant to find to meet somebody, that's going to happen. Is it is it a very specific person? Is it a very specific soul? Or is it more about a specific energy where it's like, okay, maybe you screwed up something 20 years ago and it's like, well, that relationship with that individual has come and gone, but it's another soul with the same characteristics or energy, or how does that work? Or what have you found out about that?
Yeah, so there are a few things there. First of all, it depends if it's the relationship. Uh, by the way, all those karmic relationships can become enlightened relationship. That's another aspect. Not to be technical here, you can be the avatars could be brought together thanks to karmic gravity, and if they navigate the gravity, they could be perfect match evolving together. And so that's why it's like there's no rigid structure. And what I've observed is like people think, oh, there is only one soulmate, blah blah blah. It doesn't. It's much more. The potentiality is much more diverse. And if it doesn't work out with one avatar, they can bring another avatar of the same soul that let's say has similar physical aspects and but maybe further deeper into evolutionary part. Ultimately, it's a it's a probabilistic or a percentage based match. Yes, there is a combination of avatar and the soul and the spirit, right? All the aspects that let's say are like on this planet there is 93% match. And then there is another combination that is 91% match, another one that is 87% match. But you won't know the difference of 87 or 93. Like ultimately, yes, the matrix will try to get you to the most um, expansive, happy, effective partnership and union. But there are also other aspects at play. And that's where I'm missing data. There's not enough data, and we as an organization don't have enough data and that is a very important thing to mention. Because what's happening right now on the planet, a lot of relationships that were created that were not co-creation or even enlightened, or they're not even heading in that direction, given the templates, the societal templates, the karma, and etc. So we see a lot of divorces, and there is a reason because uh, people are just becoming more honest of what's not working. So, and the reason we're not seeing enough data yet is because the first step to create a co-creation or enlightened relationship is to work on yourself first. And there are very few avatars that reached vertical experience or full synchronization of triad and um, achieving their purpose, aligning with their purpose. So as a result, we don't even have building blocks to build those unions with. We're still, as a civilization, at a state of creating building blocks. And I have quite a few friends, including myself, for the longest period of time. I was very sad and almost depressed about the fact that I haven't created family yet. I don't have kids. I want all that. But once I started recognizing all that, I was like, why would I want to rush into a relationship where we'll have to shovel shit because the general state of affairs of civilization or the planet is still like in this formative state, right?
Hmm.
So now I started sensing and understanding why many people, even if they're dating right now, that's ultimately not leading to the final relationship for a lot, because the planet did not fully get there yet. And by the way, yes, there were distortions in the matrix where wrong avatars were matched to pull more energy out of each other, because that was a big plus for the previous managers of the low vibrational civilization managers of the planet, because they wanted the more energy, low vibrational energy of anger, guilt, jealousy, blah blah blah, that these bodies produce, the more energy they have, because that's the energy they're interested in. So yes, up to a point, Matrix was matching wrong avatars because it would produce a lot of those feelings and emotions. And insectoids, reptilians, and grays, that's exactly the energy they use for their purposes, and that's a separate conversation. So I would be relationship you're in, if it's more or less working, continue working on it. If you're not in a relationship and Matrix is not allowing you to get into one, be happy with that, because there will be a moment where you will be put together in a relationship that will be great. Or if you have no problem getting into relationships right now, there's no blockages, it's not an uphill battle, you easily meet somebody. That means either that could be that ultimate relationship, or it will help you evolve to get to a point where you'll meet that person. So all options now are go. And but use your intuition. Like, for example, 2021 or 2020 to 2020, let's say 4, I was like a year, I was probably in 2-3 relationships, short ones, 2-3 months. They were going one after the other one. And that helped me evolve a lot. And that helped me close bunch of karmic loops and gestalts and whatever, right? And then it became like one, let's call it 3 months relationship a year. And then for the past year, I was completely blocked not to enter a relationship. And I was like, for 6 months, I was frustrated. I was like, whatever I tried, it just did not go anywhere. Or like, I couldn't even get on a date. The schedules didn't align. Somebody's grandma died, like, and I was like, okay, clearly a sign, I got to back off. And I backed off. And now I understand why, because over the past year, my soul and spirit through this body needed to do a lot of energetic work for the planet that otherwise would be very difficult to do if I was in uh, uh, not necessarily very constructive relationship that pulls a lot of energy from me. So I was like, wow. But I only realized that only a couple months ago, because I started deeply looking in all the constructs of the social part of Matrix and what was unfolding. And by the way, another thing, relationship is egregor, and we've chatted about egregors in previous episodes. In
Hmm.
in 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 short, egregor is an energetic container with specific parameters. When two people come together, they create a relationship which is an egregor, which is energetic container where both of them put specific types of energy, and it goes on a blender, and that's what you get as a relationship. And this whole
Yeah.
concept, what people tell you, oh, work on a relationship. There is no fucking working on a relationship, because two of you are the sources of energy that goes in there. The only thing you can work on is yourself. So by changing yourself, you stop putting, let's say, an energy that makes your egregor smoothie, energetic smoothie, taste like shit. So, but if you don't process it in you, then you can't take it out. As you're taking out from relationship, you keep, so with the other hand, you keep adding it there. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is the way the system that was managing egregors in the V5 Matrix version 5, the way egregors were managed, they were designed to take as much energy as possible from avatars, from people and the avatars and their souls, because that's what the reptilians, insectoids, greys, and etc. were here for energy. And relationship type of egregor was the most effective way to take as much energy as possible.
Mm.
So everybody who was in a relationship, is in a relationship up until recently, was heavily taxed, because that egregor of a relationship was designed. First of all, Matrix brought avatars together that trigger the fuck out of each other a lot of times, or like some avatars are brought together and then build great relationship. But let's be honest, the data set on that, the percentage of those relationship, right now, I can barely identify, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 relationships in my life, and I know a lot of people all over the world in many countries. So this is just an indication how low the success rate was. And even those who were in a co-creative and enlightened relationship, because the way social matrix was twisted, and the egregor, the egregor management part of the system was twisted,
Hmm.
even those beat the shit out of each other. But they intuitively understand, they minimize the charge, and blah, blah, blah. So, and they managed at least to stay together, understanding that this is not going to be the ultimate state. So where I'm going with this, we're just entering the time with six matrix, where sixth version of the matrix, where the right avatars will be brought together, where it will be much easier to be together in a constructive, supportive way versus let me beat the shit out of you emotionally, psychologically, energetically, whatever, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that means that, Anna is my evolutionary school.
Well, when you look at it this way, then it becomes easier because then you stop blaming the
Yeah.
partner. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm like, and that's what I'm telling everyone. It's like, if you're in a relationship, don't end it. Keep going. Just change your perspective and know that it's going to be better. If it's meant to end, it will end. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. If it's meant to lead to the ultimate relationship, it will lead there. If you're not in a relationship and you have trouble getting into one, don't push it. Relax. Don't be sad about yourself. Don't be depressed. It's not time. That means your soul, spirit, and the matrix prepared a better experience for you. And of course, another thing, sometimes people complain to me and it's like, I see all these people in a relationship around me. I can't get into one. I'm like, listen, for advanced souls, the bar is really high. So when you get into a relationship and the union and the family you're gonna build, the bar is really high because you're gonna act as an example. So, and a lot of people we deal with are these because all these advanced souls are together into groups of soul families, right? So the bar
Mhm.
for many of us is really high because sometimes they start comparing, well, I see this couple, they live a very simple life, but they're happy. Yeah, super young souls. What they need to complete in one incarnation is like build a friendly household. That's their only mission. For advanced souls, not only you need to work through a bunch of karma, learn a bunch of new qualities, then do a bunch of energetic work for the planet on the matrix, blah, blah, blah. Plus, you build the union. And when you build the union and family, the souls that load into those babies are super advanced, let's say, architect. Potential souls that you have to give them the right foundation and environment of upbringing. And until you've created that, you will not have a baby, and like the bar is like so much higher.
Yeah.
And so the idea is here is just to relax, and everything will happen in time, and relax and work on yourself, either you're in a relationship or out of a relationship, and that will guarantee um, you will get in a relationship with the right person, and it will happen sooner the more you focus on your evolution.
All right. Well, that was a humdinger, as we would call it. Uh,
I
and
don't know
I'm
that
gonna go
expression. You'll
now
have
and
to explain after.
now I'm gonna go and do some work on myself. So looking forward to next week. And yeah, what can I say? We now have the operating system for relationships.
Yeah, thanks for great questions, and chat next week.